Hello? Okay, thank you very much. Our first order of business is the school student advisory report. Jackson Dietz is not able to make it today, but he did submit his report and it will be in the minutes. And it goes to my presentation as the president of the board. I just want to thank all of the people who did speak this evening and share their concerns. We have discussions that we need to have as a group, and it's important that we hear from the community so we know where people are in the community with their thoughts, their ideas, and their concerns. The next time we as a board will meet, we will have 2 members who will be joining us. We have 1 incumbent who is running, and we have 4 new people who are running for the board. So under any circumstance, we will have at least 1 new person joining our board. And that will take place at our next scheduled board meeting. I don't have much else to say, so I'm going to pass over to Brett for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Sliz. I do have a slideshow we can probably put up on the screen. This evening, we had the opportunity to celebrate Martha Brown as being recognized as a Schools to Watch. We'll look forward to celebrating in the next several months this great accomplishment, this redesignation. I believe it was their 3rd designation, and we'll look forward to JPs. I believe will be coming up next year. Incredible educators, incredible commitment to the middle school program. We also heard from our artists and our athletes, and lots to celebrate as we open up our schools, and that has been our main focus, and will continue to be our main focus as we move through the next several weeks. The last 10 weeks are critically important. They're setting the stage for the start of the school year, but it's been fun. It's been so cool coming and going throughout our schools, seeing the engagement, the happy faces, the laughter. Our schools are at their best when there's students and staff interacting in them. And that's happening in our K-6 world. It hasn't been easy. There's been incredible lifts, lots of organization and planning, but I'm completely inspired and excited to see the students back, our staff engaged. The amount of planning and preparation by the Board of Education to make sure it's a priority is greatly appreciated. So welcome back to our students. I'm looking forward to continuing to celebrate your return.
On that, I had an email from a grandparent who's in Florida who talked to her granddaughter, and she was just so excited that she got to go to school 2 days now, and she can't wait for the next 2 days of the week. She's just ecstatic, and she's in 1st grade.
Exactly.
Thrilled.
The stories are like that in many households, so very well stated. And this next slide speaks to the timeline that we've engaged in. It just didn't happen. It took lots of work, and for that, I am grateful. For our parents who were involved, on many different levels, whether it was a community forum, whether it was a PTA group. We met with hundreds of parents. We heard from hundreds of parents their interest as we moved through this. For our staff who participated as well in our task force that had over 50 to 60 members throughout our school community, asking the one question: what do we need to do to open up our schools? And we're here. We have K-6 is in play at this point in time. There's going to be asynchronous days for students and planning days for staff on the 21st and 28th. And again, it's very appropriate that we give them these days so they can collect their thoughts and the students can sort of get regenerated and build that stamina that they need. This focus will be on assessing the first day, saying, hey, how did it go? What do we need to do better? What can we change? Make adjustments. And again, of course, building that stamina. The hybrid model will continue in grades 7 through 12. Okay. And the reason why the hybrid model needs to continue is because of our community infection rate, which I'll be talking about in a second. But on the week of May 1st, we are going to start our in-school COVID testing program. It will resume on the week of May 1st. We are anticipating a cutoff date for grades 7 through 12. I think we need to start putting parameters around that, unless there's something that comes through by the state. If numbers come down significantly or there's new information that we have, we'll be confirming that, but we're anticipating the first week in May, but we will confirm that moving forward. That's because, again, our infection rate is definitely continuing to have an uptick. The 7-day rolling average per 100,000 residents, as of yesterday, was or Monday. Yeah. See, I'm working that out. I promise. But it was 243. And if you look at Perryton, along with our surrounding friends in Monroe County, we're all pretty much living in the same areas. We do know that there will be vaccination sites available for 16 and 17-year-olds moving forward. That may be a path to end of the year activities, and that's a good thing because we want to have closure. We want to plan accordingly and do it in the safest way possible. And Mr. Clark and his team have done an amazing job of planning, again, with students, with staff, and of course with interested parents to try to plan these capstone memorable experiences for the end of the year. We anticipate testing. We're trying to confirm tests. They're really hard to get these days, believe it or not, but we feel like we're going to be able to plan and hopefully make arrangements. But that vaccination piece may be another way to get students involved moving forward. So please stay tuned for those details. But lots of things going on, lots to celebrate. Beginning of these meetings are always my favorite, when we celebrate and acknowledge the wonderful things that our students do, the accomplishments of our schools like we did today. So it really felt good to have that at the forefront of our meeting. It really felt good to get our kids back in school. We're heading in the right direction. Thank you for your support and your unwavering commitment to our students.
Thanks, Brett. Moves us on to 4D Treasurer and Investment Update. Matt, I didn't forget you this time.
Thank you and good evening. Yep. Tonight we have the Treasurer Investment Update for February of 2021. We had a beginning balance in the general fund of 83.8 million, receipts for the month of 2.4 million, disbursements of 10 million for an ending cash balance of 76.2 million. Of the 76.2, approximately 75.1 is invested in a mix of money market, insured cash sweep, and CDARS accounts across 3 different banks, which is approximately 98.5% of the general fund cash balance. Just to take note, revenues compared to last year to date, aligning approximately 99 million in revenue received, and expenses approximately 59 million in expense year to date for February of 2021. That is the report for February.
Great, thank you, Matt. Brings us down to number 5, which is the consent calendar. I need a motion to approve the consent calendar. So moved by Erica, second by Joyce. Any discussion about the consent calendar? Everyone happy with the items that are in there? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's 7-0. Brings us down to number 6, a donation. And I have to make a motion, or I'd like a motion for the Board of Education to approve the following donation. It is from Dudley Elementary PTA in the amount of $6,210, and that is to pay for an author visit. I need a motion to accept that donation, please. So thank you, Arlette. Second, Marty. Any discussion? Can you put your microphone on, please?
Do they know which author they're inviting?
I am not aware of that. All we received was the check. I'm not sure. I know this is through what organization, Brett?
This is through our BOCES COSER Performing Arts. I did know that 2 days ago, but for some reason I can't think of it. I promise you, I did. I apologize.
No, they always do a good job. They're always so generous with this, so thank you to those.
It's having taken my kids many times to the library to meet an author, and I remember Mary Jane Auck came once, and Mary Jane Auck had a car accident, and it rendered her to write everything in mirror. So we would talk about the books, and she lived in Williamson, so that the books that she wrote had a lot of local places where the kids were familiar with. There was one that mentioned Lollipop Farms. Whenever she would autograph a book, she'd always write it backwards, so the kids would have to take it and throw it in front of the mirror to see her signature. It was really neat. Kids love when the authors come to visit.
But the cool thing about it, and again, I do apologize, I do not have the name of the author at this point, but it's really starting to happen. Things are happening in our schools, these important events that are occurring, so it's exciting. And thank you to the PTA for supporting that.
Brett, is it Leywin Pham?
Pardon?
Leywin Pham is the author.
Leywin Pham, thank you. That's the author. Great, thank you. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 7-0. Brings us to personnel actions and 7A, instructional. Mr. Law. Yeah, so start. No. Need a motion to approve the following instructional staff actions as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools. Marty, second. Joyce, any discussion?
Well, I don't have a discussion per se because it's for the board, but we do have a principal who's being recommended, Jamie Naple, for Dudley School. Jamie's here with her family, and I think you owe your son something because it's a little bit longer than we anticipated, so it was great.
So Abbott's is open on the way home, so he gets his in Abbott's. Yeah, and Jamie will be joining us as the principal of Dudley starting the 1st of July. Welcome. And we do have one retirement that I would like to mention, and it's Linda Schamberger, a longtime kindergarten teacher at Brooks Hill. She will be retiring at the end of this year, and we want to thank her for her countless years of service to the district and all the lives that she's touched and all the photographs that she's shared. So thank you, Linda.
Congratulations, Linda. We look forward to celebrating the last few months with you.
Any other discussion?
I'm just gonna say that Abbott's closes at 8.
Oh, Abbott's closes at 8. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's 7-0. Thank you. Going down to athletics. A motion to approve the following athletic staff actions as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools. I need a motion for that, please. Marty, second. Peter, any discussion about that? All in favor? Aye, it's 7-0. Thank you. Non-instructional and civil service. I need a motion to approve the following non-instructional and civil service staff actions as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools. Need a motion on that, please. Marty, second. Peter, any discussion on that?
We do have a bus attendant who is retiring, Douglas Wendell. Congratulations, and we thank you for your incredible service.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. That passes 7-0. Brings us down to 8A, the budget review. And I'm going to ask Brett or Mr. Stevens, or both.
We'll both be doing that.
Okay.
I think we'll do it right from here. It's a good strategy. It seems to be working. We'll get our presentation up. Is this the presentation mode, Luke, here? We'll give this one a shot. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving the opportunity to present the 2021-22 school budget here tonight on April 20th. I think that it's important to recognize that this was an important year coming out of a pandemic. As we plan for a full school year, there was many questions that we needed to answer, lots of things that we've learned that we can continue to learn. How do you plan for a budget coming out of a pandemic? The level of engagement and learning has been inspiring, and I appreciate the clarity by the Board of Education. The advocacy that the board has engaged in over the past several years is finally coming to fruition. We are receiving foundation aid, and we have a level of commitment that it will continue to flow until its full effect over the next 3 years. And that's very important for when you plan a budget, that we're going to be getting dollars that are owed to us through state law. There's been over $80 million of unrealized aid that we've received over the past several years since 2007. And that's good for schools, not just for all public schools, but that just didn't happen. The Board of Education has spent countless hours going back and forth to Albany, advocating with our representatives there and our local representatives here. And it paid off. And we've had incredible support from State Assembly Member Jen Lunsford and New York State Senator Summer Brook, who were instrumental in securing the aid for our public schools and here in Fairport in particular. I would also like to thank Matt Stevens and his team, including Chris Eckert and Monica Shannon, and to all those community members and staff members, administrators, helped have a voice and say in the budget process. The budget process just doesn't happen today. It's something that occurs throughout the year when but when the budget is concluded and we start again on July 1st, we start planning, and it's an evolving process, and it's really an honor to be a part of it. Tonight we're going to talk about our budget goals, enrollment in sections, expenditures, a 3-part budget that is required by New York State that we present it in this form, and talk about our revenue, which basically speaks to how we're going to pay for it, and the voter proposition in next month. The budget goals, again, creating a budget in the middle of a pandemic, it's important that you have clear goals, and the board was very clear on their expectations. Educational programming relative to making sure that students come back with all the right resources they need to have success programmatically. The same level of electives, the same level of class sizes, making sure that we're taking care of and nurturing the social emotional needs of our students, our commitment to cultural competency and diversity, equity, and inclusion, instructional technology, and facilities planning. These are all pieces that we've been talking about for the past several months that we are investing in, and that is part of our budget process. And as with any other budget process, we speak about cost containment. We'll also always be monitoring and strategically utilizing our reserve funds as needed, because we see how that can help us through times like the pandemic, as it did. Our enrollment over the past several years has declined, and this was nothing new. It's not a surprise. We've had multiple studies projecting our enrollment way back 15 plus years ago. They were talking about these days, and we are in these days. We were probably losing anywhere from 0.5% to 2%, 2.5% a year over the past several years. Just since 2018-19, there was 185 less students in our buildings projected for next year. So that impacts our budget. That impacts how we need to continue to plan moving forward. Our average class sizes will be graduating approximately over the next several years, approximately about 425 students per class. That's a significant drop from when many of our alumni here went to school, when they could say that there was close to 700. And you usually jump in, Mr. Sliz, and correct me and give me an exact number.
Sometimes closer to 8. Yes.
Again, class sizes are so important. We realize that quality connections matter. We focus on the social emotional well-being of our students. Those interactions, those micro interactions are so important. The board realizes that, so we can maximize opportunities to connect with our students. And that continues to be a priority in this budget. You'll see the projected class sizes and the ranges. And again, we are planning on the lower edges of our projected class sizes and the projected changes at each one of our schools to have a commitment or to exemplify our commitment to the class sizes. Same thing at the secondary level, again, planning at the lower ranges, because again, we realize that those students need to make sure, we need to make sure that our staff has the right class sizes so they can have as many interactions with students in a class setting. But we also know that there might be class sizes that are smaller because classes like art and technology require smaller class sizes due to special programming needs. There might be some capstone programs which are good for our students. We just saw the benefits of an art program that is expansive and meets the needs of our students, and we have programs like that in our school because our students excel in them, and it's the hallmark trait of our school district. In summary, you'll see 4 elementary teachers, K-6, and we'll also be adding building paraprofessionals in the K-8 to offset the costs. We are going to be looking at federal dollars, and Mr. Stevens will be talking about how the federal dollars will be supporting this budget and offsetting the cost. At a district level, we're looking at a district level administrator to support our strategic planning, particularly as it relates to community engagement and school improvement. An important part of our budget is employee benefits. It's a total percent of our salary. Next year, our employee retirement system, those are our non-certificated employees. The contribution rate will be at 14.6% to 16.2%. Our teacher retirement system, those are our certificated employees. The estimated rate increases between 9.53 and 9.8. The state sets these costs. It's pretty much the cost of doing business in New York State, and to honor our commitments to the employee retirement system. It also includes our health and dental insurance, which you'll see an increase of 10%, and workers' compensation is based upon past claims that occur in our district. The program part of our budget, it's costs associated with our student instruction. It supports student services. It's everything that's curriculum and instruction. It's also about transporting over 5,500 of our students to public, private, and parochial schools. It's 75% of our budget, and it tells our story. You'll see there's a line item of 8.79% related to BOCES and professional development. In grant writing, as Mr. Stevens will be talking about the federal grant, we're going to be needing support in developing that grant as we move through the nuances of accessing those dollars. The library, media, and computer specialists will see 11.53% increase, and that's salary reallocation. We have tech coaches. We have also tech coaches that have been reallocated to this budget line because that's where they were doing most of their work as Mr. Stevens was cleaning up the budget process and making sure that people were being paid out of the right codes. The overall increase in this budget line is 2.4%. And again, you'll see special programs where we are able to service our students with a wide array of special ed students that we're honored and obligated to provide. The transfer to special aid fund is there, and that's our summer school commitments as well. That is BOCES aidable, and that's an 8.7% increase. Again, total program being redundant, I apologize, is 2.4% increase in that line. The administrative budget, it's the cost associated with the administration of the district and each school building. It's approximately 11.7% of our budget. Looking at the line items, these are pretty much salaries, benefits, and other contractual items. In each one of these line items, you'll see that there was an adjustment of a negative 4.12%. In the line item for legal, personnel, and public and information services. And another negative 1.57%, again, to offset other central services. I'm drawing a blank on that. Mr. Stevens. Can you help
That's
me
the
with that?
shift of the technician salaries over to the program portion of the budget.
Thank you very much. Thank you for saving me on that one. And the instructional component is our building administrators and our directors, and that's, again, just 2.29%, but you'll see a big one there. It's the other special items, is the BOCES capital project. It's our commitment to support the BOCES capital project. Many of our students attend BOCES, and they are doing an updated facilities renovation, and that is our $1.1 million share in that line item. Capital budget. That's its cost associated with operating and maintaining our school facilities. It's our bus purchases. We're approximately replacing on a 10-year replacement cycle. We're replacing 10 buses this year, 6 71 passengers, 1 28 passenger, and 3 28 passengers this year. It also includes our debt service, which speaks to about $60,000 coming off from previous projects. Again, you'll see a decrease in that line item, decrease in the bus purchases, because the buses that we are trading in are different types of buses from last year. And again, the overall line item, and that is minus 1.61%. Three-part budget of program, administrative, and capital is 2.59%. Again, you'll see the administrative piece at 8.84%, because that is relative to the BOCES capital project and honoring that commitment to support the renovations that are occurring at the BOCES Foreman Center, which our students access. Again, overall 2.59%. And we're going to transition to Mr. Stevens, and he's going to talk about revenues.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the revenue side of the budget, which helps support the expense side that Mr. Provenzano spoke about with the program admin and capital. Kind of a highlight to look at that increase in the admin portion of the budget will actually have an offsetting BOCES aid revenue that comes in on the revenue side of the budget. So when we get to that piece, you'll see there's an increase in state aid related to that. Here's a quick summary. You can see the bulk of our revenue comes from state aid and the property tax levy. We are a county that we are a school district of which the county still shares sales tax. So that's a positive piece for Fairport. You can see that's approximately $4.9 million of the budget. And then the other piece is related to assigned fund balance and our general fund reserves. We'll talk more about that as we go through this revenue. Overall, quick summary on the state aid to education. So last we talked, when we had the executive proposal, we saw a freeze to foundation aids. There's no increase there. We saw a proposal to move expense-based aids into a services aid category, which ultimately would have resulted in less aid for schools across the state. Here, as Brett mentioned before, there is a commitment to phase foundation in over the next 3 years. So there's a $1.4 billion increase overall to state funding for foundation aid for 2021-22. For Fairport, this equals $1.3 million as it runs through the formula. Federal funding, here you see 2 pieces of federal funding that have been approved and allocated for schools. Still waiting on the guidance to actually submit and apply for these monies over the next few years. But first, you see the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act funds. That is approximately $5.4 million for Fairport over the course of a couple of years through September of 2022. That excludes, take note, in terms of both the American Rescue Plan and the CRRSA funds, that those two date ranges exclude the 12-month tidings amendment period. What's a tidings amendment period? There's one additional year beyond the grant end date that schools have to spend those funds. So that, just to help explain and identify that piece. The American Rescue Plan, it equals funds of $4.2 million for Fairport. Again, you see through 2022-23, which would then be 2024 with that, if including the 12-month tidings amendment period. A couple of pieces to consider. With this funding, it's overall great for schools as we have the foundation aid commitment over the next 3 years, as well as the federal funds. Just a couple of long-term budget planning things to consider. Our sustainability with the increase in foundation aid after it's fully phased in according to the formula, likely will be the last large increase the school will receive, which in year 3 is estimated at $1.8 million for an increase. So along with the federal stimulus funding that has those end dates, really keeping in mind the long-term planning process as we transition out of the pandemic and the opportunity we really have over the next few years, but looking at the future to be sure there's sustainability long-term for the school districts. Again, looking at the federal funds, identifying any qualifying non-recurring expenses one time, that's been encouraged with the use of federal funds to help transition out, address learning loss, maybe after school programs, summer programming, et cetera. A couple other highlights just down at the bottom. Again, the services aid proposal rejected. There was also a local district funding adjustment, which was a negative adjustment equal to the CRRSA federal funding, a loss of what would have been $5.4 million for Fairport, which was landed by the CRRSA. That's no longer in existence. So truly the CRRSA funding is in addition and supplemental to the state funding. And then transportation aid reimbursement for 1920 standby expenses approved at the state level, which is a positive for schools.
I had a question on the foundation aid. Since we haven't had experience with it for well over a decade or longer, 33 decades, that formula, then should we get to full formula following full formula? Never mind, too much alliteration. After it's fully funded, what does it have for, does it have any area of the formula that's based on like CPI or other types of increases?
The formula has really multiple factors with wealth built in. It's an extensive formula at the state level that runs through for schools. So overall, once that phase-in takes place, typically the increases have been smaller. So again,
that it won't. We're no longer a Tin Can Alley type thing, right?
Correct.
Every March, it's we have to plan on that the increases will be truly formula based, that they don't have inflation indexes built into that formula.
Right, and depending if that formula is fully running, drops in enrollment could actually cause a decrease in funding with foundation aid as a whole. So when enrollments were up higher, the phase-in level would have been a higher number, and we've seen the full phase-in of the foundation aid formula actually drop. Where Fairport back in 2012-13, our full phase-in would have been $31 million. In 2021-22, it's actually $28 million, $28.7 million. So those factors within the formula change that actual full phase-in amount.
Okay.
Yep. So again, minor adjustments in terms of the funding that could go up or down if that is truly running by the formula.
All right. You're just considering if indeed, and again, Albany hasn't done it for such a long time, but should they actually get there and have a formula that they follow, it does allow us to do multi-year revenue planning, which has been challenging to do for so many years. At least we can start looking at what that will be based on the formula. Yes. And say, okay, now whether to support any growth that's needed or whatever it might be, what does that mean on a local tax base, or what do we need out of sales tax, whatever it might be.
Correct. Yep. And just to give an idea, we'll talk about what the 1.3 million increases for next year, but that'll be 25 million. Our full phase-in for 21-22 would have been 28.7 million. So we're still 3.7 million underfunded. of which will be spread out over the next 2 years beyond 21, 22. So that's the plan right now. at the
Right, for
state
2
level.
years, positive possibly, if they stick with what they said.
Right.
And after that, again, more of a flattening, formula-based, and a formula that has no inflation index built in.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Matt, question for you. We're going to be printing all this and putting it out in the commentator, correct?
Yep, the commentator, yep, the information will go on the commentator as normal. We also put together a public summary document that gets posted to our website.
Right. And question I have for you is a lot of our residents, the most important number for them is how will my taxes be affected by this?
We will, yep, it's right in the presentation.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Yes, they want to know, based on an average $200,000 house, this is what your tax bill would change by.
Yep, we just did the highlight on the state aid, state's budget, so now we have all the revenue pieces. If the presentation, I can just pop back up on the screen. Perfect. So here's a summary of the state aid revenue. Again, after looking at the foundation aid increase, that's the large increase we see here of 1.3 million, showing the pandemic adjustment and the federal CARES restoration. Those were funds that schools received beginning in 2020-21. There was a pandemic adjustment that was offset by federal funding. So there was no additional money here. It actually supplanted the pandemic adjustment. However, both of those are going away next year. So that's just to show the movement there and the funding as well as the adjustment. The transportation, BOCES, and building aid, primary increase here is related to the BOCES capital project that is being supported on the expense side. And here you see that revenue coming in to the state aid, BOCES aid. Our excess cost aids, those are aids that we receive for students with special needs. That would be both public and private placements. This is formula driven, no change in the formula, it just depends on placements. So here you see overall a decrease of 61,000 based on the estimates. And then our aidable materials, urban, suburban, and tuition aid. Here, the small decrease you see of 22,000 is primarily related to our textbook library, hardware and software, aidable items, and that's strictly because of our enrollment figures and decreases in enrollment and how that is driven for the expense-based aid. So overall, 5% increase on state aid related to the foundation aid and the aid on the BOCES capital project. Next, the property tax levy limit. Again, this is the commonly known as 2% cap. I won't go through this entirely, but there's a formula. If we jump to the next screen, we can talk about what that formula looks like for Fairport and the tax levy limit calculation. It's based on, we jump to the next, thank you. It's based on the tax-based growth factor. That's one piece that's set at the Office of Real Property Services at the state level. This is growth within the town of Perryton. Also driven by CPI, which is the allowable levy growth factor, down in the middle of the formula, was 1.23% for the 2021-22 tax levy limit calculation. So here's that 2%. So you can see it's actually under 2% in terms of the growth of CPI. When we add pilots receivable and then pilots from prior year and then in the coming year, we come to the capital exclusion portion of the formula where our capital levy, which is our debt, our local share of debt service, our local share of the BOCES capital project, and our local share of bus purchases, provides for our capital levy exclusion, which is $1.5 million. Overall results in a tax increase of 2.05% or $81.1 million for the tax levy limit. Here's putting the state aid together with all the other revenues. Here you see, again, the property tax levy increase of 1.6 million, percent change of 2.05%. At this point, in estimating tax rate, this would be the increase we project for a tax rate increase utilizing current year assessments. So there could be a change in the overall tax base for town of Perryton. With a growth in tax base, it actually would mean a lesser percent rate increase as a whole. Our payments in lieu of taxes, those are agreements at both the village and county level where we receive some payments in lieu of taxes on the agreement. Usually it's a 10-year agreement. Sales tax, again, you see growth here of sales tax and other. You see a growth of 90,000. Overall, related to our sales tax, state aid, 2.1 million. As it relates to how we support the revenue shortage, because after we had the revenues up, there's a shortage to support the $138 million overall budget. The district utilizes any leftover funds from the prior school year and assigns that fund balance to offset the revenue shortage for the following school year. Here you see that appropriation of $4 million to transfer from our debt service fund, which can be helped to offset the local share of that of $200,000 and assigned reserves of $2.3 million. So overall, here's where you see the revenue side of the budget balancing out against the expense side. On the next slide, this is a breakdown of the fund balance and reserves. As we look at that $2.3 million number, it's a combination of our tax tertiary reserve, appropriating $20,000 from that, which can help pay for any tax refunds in the school year. The amount actually spent during the school year will only be that of which is actually spent. So the amount we bring from the reserve, when we spent 10,000 refunds, only 10,000 would come from the reserve. Unemployment reserve to support unemployment expenses, and the retirement contribution reserve, which has a sub-fund of TRS that we were able to establish a couple of years ago. Overall, between those two reserves, $2.2 million. So a total of $6.5 million from reserves and fund balance. This just shows a quick breakdown of starting with the budget, grabbing our total revenues of $132 million, and then the debt service fund transfer along with the fund balance and reserves, and how those pieces play into supporting the revenue side to come up with a balanced budget that we're required to present of $138.7 million for 2021-22. Overall, percent of the assigned fund balance and reserves to budget, about 4.6%. So you can see at the bottom of the screen, a few years back, we had decreased reliance given the state of the economy and the need for programming and so forth. We have increased the commitment to support the overall revenue shortage for the school. Again, using the foundation aid and the federal funding long-term could help us look at ways to decrease the reliance long-term for sustainability. So the next piece, this is the proposition. It's an additional proposition that will be on the ballot. This is spending money from our capital technology reserve. It's part of a long-term plan that we've had to ease reliance off of spending from the tech reserve. These have helped us make purchases through BOCES, which in turn drives BOCES aid. This is our plan last year of utilizing the tech reserve, pending any additional needs that could come long-term. But at this point in time, shifting monies into the general fund over time will help with the sustainability with the technology purchased across the district. So you'll see this on the ballot as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. On May 4th, we'll be presenting this budget again in a public hearing right here at Fairport High School at 6:30 p.m. Not on the slide is May 5th, an event sponsored by our PTA. It would be Meet the Candidates Night at 7 p.m. here at Fairport High School as well. Again, we'll continue to share that information in those dates moving forward. And of course, on May 18th, there'll be a budget vote and board election where 2 seats, Board of Education seats, have come to term, and that will be open for voters to elect board members.
Matt, I didn't get my question answered. On a basic average $200,000 house in the town of Harrington, this Fairport Central School District, I know you said the increase would be about 2.05%. Do we have a dollar amount that we could apply to that so that our residents can say, okay, I have an idea of how much my taxes might be going up if I approve this budget?
We'll be putting that in the commentary as we work through the different information that we publish and put out.
Okay, and another question too. I know that in the past 2 years, the town forwent its assessments, the reassessments. Do we know if that's going to, I believe they're going to be starting that again in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Have you heard anything?
Haven't heard anything new on that.
Because I know that is something that I think they're planning on doing in 2022, starting January. And that will affect the whole way that the whole tax levy.
It will. Fairport Schools is very fortunate, at least from my experience, that our district is in one township. So I've come from schools that have had 5 townships of different equalization rates in calculating the school tax rate. So overall, if the equalization rate is below 1, which for 2020-21 was actually 93% of assessed value at the town level, it actually still kind of flowed across the entire tax rate calculation in the same factor. But again, any changes in assessments for individual homes could change the rate itself or amount due for that home, but I have not heard of it going through at this point.
Great, thank you.
Again, that's on May 18th, the budget vote and board election, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Joanna Perrin Middle School, the gymnasium.
Board comments or questions regarding the budget presentation? We all set to move on. We now go to our 8B presentation, the 2019 capital improvement project presentation. And today we have representatives from both Labella and Campus Construction to present to us where we are with the current project. So gentlemen, take it away.
Just quick introduction. We have Scott Walrus and Kevin, oh gosh, last name, Arlotta. Thank you. Didn't want to mispronounce it. Presenting from Campus Construction Manager for us tonight.
All right, good evening. Here is the update for the Phase 1A capital improvement project. So the district received bids for the 6 prime contracts on March 30th. As you can see, we had great bidder participation across the board. Going down to the next slide. And here's a look at the apparent low bidders with the alternates selected. Campus, Labella, and Fairport met with each apparent low bidder to de-scope their bid, make sure all scopes of work were covered and in the appropriate contract. And here's a look at the overall project budget as it stands. So it was the 56 million approved referendum. The Phase 1A construction value, those were those 6 prime contracts we just looked at, totaled up to 20.5 million. We also had 4 state contracts as part of this project, and those came in at 706,000. You can see the breakdown of those just below. Then we have our Phase 1B estimated construction budget value of 14.5 million. Available funds for construction is 7.2 million. And then we have our total incidental budget, and this includes both Phases 1A and 1B of 10.2 million. And then our project contingency of 3.4 million. Just look at the milestone dates for the project. Provided contracts are awarded, we will have a kickoff meeting with the project team and the apparent low contractors this Thursday. After that, we'll begin the submittal process with all contractors. We'll begin submitting information to the project team for review, specifically on materials, equipment being installed through the project. And then once school is out in June, we'll be starting construction. And those are the big areas that we've got this summer: the kitchen cafeteria renovations, the courtyard infill, setting up of the temporary kitchen in the gymnasium, and then the multi-purpose field, stadium field, and then partial classroom and corridor renovations. Here's just an overall look at the timeline for the project. So we'll be beginning construction again this June, and that'll carry all the way till the fall of 23. Now Skell will get a little bit more in-depth look at phasing.
We put together a phasing plan so the contractors will know where we want them and when we want them there. And this was incorporated into the bid documents. For like starting off with the stadium field, we're hoping to get that done this year. And then the multi-purpose field to the right, we're going to start that and get as far as we can this year. If we can get the turf, that would be great, but I don't really count on it right at this time. just because everything's backed up right now from the COVID and the schools all coming together, all wanting to get their turfs in. If we can beat them, that's great. We can get the turf. If not, it'll be next year. And we anticipated that in our schedule. We don't show it being done until next summer complete. We went through the school and phased out all the construction throughout the school. This is the first floor. The cafeteria is a brown area in the center. The gym is on the left in purple, and you can see the temporary kitchen above that, just where the little slice lines are. You really can't tell very well from here, but it's that area right there. We're going to make the temporary kitchen once we got and renovate this complete cafeteria area. And then we took the classrooms on in sections of 2 from that point on to get them renovated, put them back online, and then move on to the next two classrooms. The summertime, we're going to take far more at a shot. That's the first floor. Like, we have the team locker rooms, the boiler room. Everything's broken out and tells the contractors when we want them there. And this is the second floor. You can see the courtyard in the yellow. That center part of the yellow is the window of the courtyard. That gets filled in to become another classroom. And then the other courtyard will be getting filled in also for mechanical room. And that's spaced just like the one below it, so that we could do all the infrastructure for the science wings and the chemistry labs from down below and get them done at the same time. Any questions on anything?
If I could just add really quick to the team, thank you very much. Also, this amount of work in construction at the high school, it's a tremendous amount. So without the collaboration of the high school administration, thanks to Mr. Clark, and the balance between that and campus and the Bellas, along with the contractors, as we move through this project over the next few years, I think it's a big effort, and appreciate all the collaboration that goes in line with this construction work. So
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of user meetings, the swing space that it's going to require for us to continue to keep our environment safe and productive for our students. It's going to be a great effort, but we appreciate the planning, collaboration, Mr. Clark and your team, the accessibility and your flexibility. There'll be more to that in the near future, and updates on the real impact again.
So just a couple of things from the facilities meeting this morning that we talked about. One is that June is the beginning of the culmination of multi-years of planning that we've been doing, all really purposeful around moving Minerva over to the high school, which is further on in the sequence. But so it's really something to celebrate, that we planned for this for a long time, and it's going to start in June. So that's fantastic. And the other thing is that the high school environment will be very disrupted for the next couple of years. And so I think the expectations are that it's going to be changing, and people are going to have to be flexible and patient. And no vacation for Bob for a couple of years. But it's exciting to see, but it's going to be challenging at the same time.
And we know for the students who are currently there and who will be there in the next couple of years, their high school memories will be of construction, knowing that the future generations will be able to benefit from them. So I want to make sure that we really thank those kids, because their lives are going to be disrupted for the majority of their high school years, and they won't be able to see the fruits of their disruption, but the future generations will. So we need to make sure that we're constantly thanking our students for being flexible, and also the teachers. There are some teachers that will retire from construction, and some teachers that will be hired in construction. So it's just flexibility all around. And
quite honestly, you're right, the students, the staff, and parents, quite honestly, everybody's going to have to be flexible and patient through the process, because transportation, everything else is going to be disrupted to some degree. I mean, I feel like you guys have a really good sequencing plan to minimize the disruption as much as you can. So I think that's great. I really think that's going to benefit us all, the planning that you're doing. But it's going to be a mess, nevertheless.
And again, from our facilities meeting this morning, was really pleasant and kind of surprising to see that the bids came in lower than I expected them to come in. That really gave us some good wiggle room of approximately $7 million. So that really, that was, especially in today's environment, I thought with the craziness going on with building, that materials would be higher, and that's great.
Well, that's an important thing you just brought up, Tim, and that is the there is the $7 million, 7.2, I believe, $1 million of, I forgot the category. Contingency or, it was,
Well, that's just leftover, right, leftover from budget anymore.
but it will allow us to knock off some BCS projects that have priority. So there will be some flexibility to get things done that we didn't initially have baked into the scope of phase 1A, because we do have that extra money.
Yep.
And that's good.
And as Matt can tell you, and he did a great job this morning explaining the cost, what's the term?
Maximum cost allowance.
Maximum cost allowance. You know, you're allowed to spend so much on a building, and then you gotta wait 5 years before you can go back and spend more money on that. So while we've got this extra money, we can get those projects done that we're saying, you know what, if we don't do it now, we have to wait at least 5 years to get it done, and some small, we can just chip away some of the real necessities that need to occur.
And we're feeding off each other, I think. But along with that maximum cost allowance, sequencing along the way, the maximum cost per student will increase as we bring the kids from Minerva over to the high school. So that it'll increase in the rate phase.
We anticipate and hope, and that's what part of this process is, to do a lot of measuring multiple times, so it's a clean cut. But that's the plan.
Yeah, I just think I was impressed that there is a full scope of a plan, both from a physical footprint perspective and actually getting the work done, but also from a financial perspective, Matt.
And I'm glad you clarified bringing the students from Minerva over, because at first you said we're gonna move Minerva, and I could just see these big flatbeds moving the school over to the high school. I thought, that's okay.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, team.
Sorry, can I
Appreciate
ask,
it.
Yes.
don't get too comfortable, John. Sorry, just kidding. Just based on the experience over the last few years and challenges, just trying to make sure I understand the laws around picking appropriate, bidders. And not just low cost, but reputable, or not looking for that gotcha moment of now we're taking out a lot of water and we're gonna gouge you at $1,000 per gallon type thing. How do we able to utilize that type of, is there somewhere in the process that allows us to look at a reputable bidder? And not just go on low cost?
If you could go to the microphone, please. Thanks. Thanks.
By state law, you have to go by the apparent low bidder that's competent and that can do the job.
So
We
define
describe-
competent?
We describe these bidders, well, we've used many of them, many other jobs, and not had any issues with them. Several of them have already done work in the school district, and you didn't have any major issues with them. We just scoped them along with the architect and the engineers. We went through the prints with them and sat down with them after the bid. We took the two apparent low bidders from each one of the trades. We took the site general trades, went on through, and we met with them and walked them through and said, we expect this, we expect that. Did you carry this? Did you do this? And they all came through with the correct answers that we wanted to hear, at least the ones that are low bidders right now. You did have two low bidders that backed out because they had made mistakes in their bids. Okay, so all these contractors you have right here tonight that we're recommending have proven track records. We have their bond too, okay? That's pretty important. They can't work without the bond, and we wouldn't even have them if they didn't have the bond.
Those that we're having struggles with currently off the last project, are we required to take them if they were the apparent low bidder?
You would have had an awful legal battle to try to get rid of them, okay? But you can.
We did clarify today that none of the bid awards went to anybody that were having issues with the current.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't trying to encourage, I'm just trying to look at what's reasonable for us to say, look, we worked with them and it wasn't a good experience, and I don't care if you're low. It's not that I don't care that you're a low bidder, it's just we have experience with you and it's been poor. And ultimately you weren't a low bidder because you cost us so much, whether it was legally or otherwise. And, taking that into account, let's not repeat it, right? We don't have to, right?
That's not our intention, believe me.
I know that, and I just wanted to know that where the law allows us to take in that type of experience that we've had. So I know it's fairly strict and narrow, and it's unfortunate sometimes because it keeps us repeating things, not purposefully and not due to any fault of anybody. It's just want to make sure we do our best. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you. All set. Anybody else have any comments regarding this or questions? Okay, we're going on to the board discussion action items, number 9A, policy second read. I need a motion that the Board of Education approves the second reading of the following policies: 3281, use of district-owned materials and equipment; 3510, emergency school closing. We've worked on this in the policy committee. We had the first read at our last meeting. I need a motion. Thank you, Erica. Second. Joyce, any discussion?
Some look like they're just comments that aren't part of policy. Will those be removed, I assume? Or like I see, make sure so-and-so follows up, something like that in one of them. It's just a,
And the emergency school closings.
oh, no, district-owned materials, right? I see in green asterisks.
I think there's another version that probably is updated.
I assume, right? It's
Yeah.
just right, this isn't gonna.
These are general versions, yeah.
Yeah.
These are the ones and the changes that are highlighted.
Yeah, all those changes make, yes. So it hasn't been 100% finalized. That's what we're going on to make sure. So if you look at that, what you see there will be the policy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what I see there are things I think need to be removed.
Brett would be out to make sure Aaron's following through.
The asterisk.
Yeah.
Thank you to the policy committee. I know it's a lot of work, so.
We could be meeting weekly. Yeah. There's that much to do. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's 7-0. Thank you. It's to the school budget. The budget that was presented to us this evening. I need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school budget in the amount of $138,667,456. Do I hear a motion, please? Erica, second. Arlette, any discussion?
I love rounding. I do. Sorry, we probably should come back at discussion in terms of this. How are they saying the CRRSA? Are they saying CRSA? And then the ARP.
The COVID response money?
Right. It's going into special aid, right? So it's not part of this budget we're bidding on. Because we're still looking at things. We talked about some of them last week, whatever it was. Sorry, I'm working off fumes here a little bit. That gives us some flexibility, right? We've talked about what's one time. I'm not sure I want to keep using one time, but more of a temporary nature, even if that temporary is over 2 or 3 years. That gives us flexibility to look into that. Is that right? To utilize those. Since once the budget's passed, we have these limitations, but these are special funds related to COVID expenses, all that. So we have the flexibility to say, okay, let's go ahead and do something that doesn't bust our budget because it's allocated through special aid. Am I understanding that correctly? Right.
Correct. Yep. The advisement is they will be coded different than the CARES Act. The CARES Act money was coded in general fund. The ARP, American Rescue Plan, and the coronavirus relief grants are to be coded in our special aid fund, which is totally separate from this $138 million figure.
And those combined figures are a little over $9 million.
A little over $9 million.
And that's over the course of the next 2 to 3 years.
Correct. Yep. 2 different end dates for each one of those, but yes.
And our deadline to submit to the state for some of those is July 1st, June 30th.
There's an initial deadline of July 1st, still awaiting guidance in terms of what the submission looks like through the portal.
All right, so that should come out on what, June 25th?
On a Friday at 5 o'clock. Thank you for the comments, Peter. Any other questions or comments from the board? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 7-0. Property tax report card. Motion to approve the 2021-2022 property tax report card as attached. Need a motion, please? Marty, second. Peter? Mr. Stevens, if you could just give us a quick update on what this is. I know it's an annual and it's a required document that we need to approve.
Yep, if you see the format, you'll notice that comes right from the New York State Education Department portal that we have to submit this through, and have approved. This basically gives a summary of the proposed budget, the tax levy, exclusions, you see enrollment on here, as well as some current reserve fund levels and projected levels at this point. So that's the property tax report card. Again, this also goes into our public summary document, also available for you.
Any other questions, comments? I need a vote, please. All in favor? Aye, it's 7-0. Thank you. Brings us down to the external auditor agreement. I need a motion to approve the external auditor agreement. Let me get back to where it was here. With Mingle, Metzger, Bar and Company LLP for fiscal year ending in 2021 as attached. Need a motion, please. Marty, second. Peter? And quick discussion on this, please.
Just to help me understand that we're approving an agreement that's good, that's valid until the end of the calendar year.
And Matt's going to explain why we're doing that for just the next few months.
So this is audit for the 2020-21 fiscal year. This would allow Mengel's firm to perform that audit. And it's, remember Ray Wagger, this is Ray Wagger's firm that became part of Mengel Metzger Bar and Company. This 1-year agreement extension allows us to get in line with the other county school districts in the 5-year RFP process. So that's
But it's essentially a 7-month agreement at this point, right?
no, it's audit for the 2020-21 year end.
All right.
So each year is truly really an audit of our financials.
Okay.
Looking at both the general fund or special aid funds, the single audit. As well
So
as the classrooms.
it hasn't required any engagement for the past 4 months.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Matt, could you just do a quick explanation of the 5-year request for proposal, please?
Yep, it's a external audit. Services are required to do a 5-year request for proposal process. So the county districts are all in together where one school district will lead the RFP process, and we can all be included within that RFP and then do the evaluation of the responses ourselves.
So that we're not
So it
all
allows-
dealing with, so all districts are doing the same thing.
Right, so, instead of over 15 districts doing an RFP on their own, we can group together and, kind of share the process.
A shared service. Streamline things for finance people.
Yeah, we already do it on internal audit. We're on that same cycle. Somehow, many years ago, we got off this cycle by 1 year from the other districts.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, that's 7-0. Next is the capital improvement project phase 1 bid awards. I need a motion to approve bid awards in the execution of contracts for the 2019 capital improvement project phase 1 as attached. And that was outlined by our presentation this evening. I need a motion, please. Already, second. Erica, any discussion, further discussion?
Just one other comment about the firms that won the awards. I think you asked the question this morning. All these firms are within 100 miles of Fairport, so they're local businesses.
Yeah, most of them are within 50 miles, except for one, which is from Tonawanda. That's a well-known, reputable company. They actually, it's a new name, same company. They bought out the other company. That's our client contract. Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. It passes 7-0. Change order resolution for the 2019 capital improvement project. A motion to approve the change order resolution for the 2019 capital improvement project as attached. Need a motion, please. It's 25 after 8. I need a motion, please. Marty, second. Erica. Discussion, comments, questions? Everyone understand what this is? Can we have a quick
Sure.
explanation, please, just for those who might not understand it?
Yep, as part of any capital project that we've had performed, we set a limit through change order resolution. We work with council, we work with the construction management, architectural team about setting that limit. This limit is $50,000. It allows the superintendent to approve any change order below up to $50,000. Any other change orders would require board approval, really to help through the construction process as a whole. It will still be, any change orders will still be reported through on a monthly report in terms of the process. So the information will still be there, just allows the construction process to continue.
So anything over 50,000 does have to come to the board for approval.
Correct.
Yep. Anything else? Questions, comments?
Is that written in law, or how do we come up with 50,000 as the level?
When you hit certain limits, we would be required to bid the work out because of Wick's law. So 50,000 is the reasonable limit to allow for that approval, reasonability within the contracts.
Does that answer your question, Peter?
Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of other numbers we have, in terms of approval of transfers and others, you know, we have, can't think of the word, kind of.
And Matt, does this seem to be industry standard?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. That's 7-0. Thank you. Next is the capital outlay project, Fairport High School bid award contract. A motion to approve the bid award and the execution of a contract for the 2020 capital outlay project, Fairport High School, as attached. Need a motion on that, please. Erica? A second? Arlette? Any other comments or questions now? All good with this? Okay, need a vote, please. All in favor? That's 7-0. Thank you. That brings us down to Monroe BOCES annual election administrative budget vote. We have 5 seats, 5 different individuals. Will start. It says a motion that the Fairport Board of Education casts 1 vote for the election of Robert Dixon, resident of the West Irondequoit Central School District, as a member of the Monroe No. 1 BOCES Board for a term of office which will begin on July 1st, 2021 and end on June 30th, 2024. Do I hear a motion, please? Erica, second. Joyce? Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
That passes 7-0. Seat number 2, motion that the Fairport Board of Education casts 1 vote for the election of Maureen Knupp, resident of the Fairport Central School District, as a member of the Monroe No. 1 BOCES Board for a term of office which will begin on July 1st, 2021 and end on June 30th, 2024. Motion by Joyce, second. Erica, discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Last night for about 30 minutes, delightful as always. She wanted me to pass on her regards, knowing we were voting, but anyway, delightful as always, so she misses everybody.
Thank you, Peter. All in favor? Aye. Pass 7-0. Motion that the Fairport Board of Education casts 1 vote for the election of Thomas Nespeka, I believe I pronounced it correctly, resident of the Webster Central School District, as a member of the Monroe No. 1 BOCES Board for a term of office which will begin on July 1st, 2021 and end on June 30th, 2024. Motion, please. Marty, second. Erica. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. 7-0. 2 more. Motion that the Fairport Board of Education casts 1 vote for the election of Nancy Stemmel, resident of the East Irondequoit Central School District, as a member of the Monroe No. 1 BOCES Board for a term of office which will begin on July 1st, 2021 and end on June 30th, 2024. Do I hear a motion, please? Marty, second. Peter. Discussion? All in favor? Aye, thank you. Seat 5, motion that the Fairport Board of Education casts 1 vote for the election of Mark Kikanovich, resident of the Brighton Central School District, as a member of the Monroe No. 1 BOCES Board for a term of office which will begin on July 1st, 2021 and end on June 30th, 2024. Motion, please. Erica. Second, Marty. Conversation, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Passes 7-0. Brings us down to 10F, Monroe No. 1 BOCES Administrative Budget. Motion that the Board of Education of the Fairport Central School District vote to approve the proposed Monroe No. 1 BOCES administrative budget in the amount of $5,662,083 for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Motion, please. Marty, second. Arlette, discussion. All in favor? Aye. 7-0. Thank you for your patience through those. brings us down to board comments. And I'll start with my left. Peter, any comments or questions or anything you'd like to share with us tonight? I think, seeing as we had some other people speak, that you are also a candidate for a position on the board. Great.
Date night. Take it from there.
Okay.
I'll just be quick, but I just wanted to thank the teachers and administrators for moving so quickly and making so many changes so that our K through 6 kids could go back. I know my son in 6th grade is pretty darn excited to be there, so I know it was a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort, so thank you.
Arlette, anything?
Just want to thank everyone for coming and, participating. This has been a very difficult and very long day for all of us, I think. And we have a pretty aggressive agenda for the rest of the week as well. So I also, as Erica has said, like to congratulate our superintendent, board members, all of our teachers and administrators of moving ahead in such an excellent scenario across these very difficult months.
Thank you, Arlette. Mary?
I would just echo those thanks without repeating all of them, but it's been an amazing piece of work by everyone involved, and we do appreciate that on behalf of our children and wish that our 7-12 could be with them. In addition, I just want to add my congratulations to Linda Schemberger, who's a teacher I had the pleasure of working with at Brooks Hill for many years. Best wishes in her retirement.
Joyce?
I'll just ditto all that, and I hope that we can get our secondary students in soon. And I think we just have to bring our infection rate down so that we can get them in. And so the more people who get vaccinated and do all of the fun things we should be doing, wearing our masks, washing our hands, distancing, we might be able to bring that rate down and get those kids in 5 days.
Thank you. Damon?
I just think tonight was a tough night.
There's a 5-minute time limit.
Yeah, I want to take 5 minutes. Tonight was tough, right? I mean, it was good. We had good community participation. It was tough. And I think that it's important during tough times to really stay focused on the positive things that are happening. And there are so many positive things that are happening day to day in the district. And we talked about the capital improvement that we put so much time and effort on, and that's going to be exciting. And we're back in school K through 6, and that's exciting. And things are moving ahead. And welcome to the Fairport family. That's exciting as well. And there's just a lot of positive things to feel good about. It's just hard to be focused on that sometimes. And I want to thank the teachers and administration. I really want to thank Brett and your administrative team. I know this has been really, really difficult for you guys as well. So thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for working hard every day, 7 days a week. I know personally that you're on it all the time. So I appreciate everybody's efforts.
Thank you. I would like to thank our speakers this evening, our community members who did speak to us. We heard the passion, we heard their concerns, we heard their questions, and I'd like to thank them for coming and speaking to us. Jamie Maples, the new principal of Dudley School, welcome. We look very forward to having you start with us on the 1st of July and being able to get into that K2 building and share your magic with the staff that we have there and our students and families. So welcome. And last, Arlette. It has been an amazing journey these past few months with you amongst us. You have shared your expertise, your wisdom, your intelligence, and best of all, you shared you with us. And we thank you for that. We say that because at our next board meeting, we will not have Arlette. She is going to be leaving us, and a new individual will be elected to fill her position. And that person will be taking that seat on the 18th of May at once we get the vote underway and counted. So Arlette, thank you so much. You have given me a totally totally new outlook on humanity. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It's just
Microphone.
Thank you so much. It has been a humbling experience. It certainly has been an experience that has taught me, and I didn't think it was actually possible to learn more about leadership, to learn more about compassion, and to learn about putting our next generation right here in the center as number one. These are just really extraordinary board members. I have never seen a group work as hard and long as they do. And so at Fairport residents, we are just truly blessed if you are a Christian, and if you are not, we are just in excellent shape with this group. And I know that it will continue in the next vein. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, we do need to hear a sound before you do leave us because we understand your voices, angelic and melodic. That brings us down to the executive session. Before we begin and before I ask for a motion to move into executive session, for those of you who are watching us live, after we exit executive session, we will be adjourning the meeting. So we will be cutting the live stream as soon as we go into executive session. We will not be conducting any business afterwards. It'll just simply be to reconvene to open session to adjourn the meeting. So thank you all for tuning in for us. It's been a long evening and we appreciate you. We appreciate your following us, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us should you have need. I now would like a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters related to recommendations for tenure and matters related to a litigation update. Damon, that's first for Damon, second. Erica, discussion? All in favor, please. Aye, that's 7-0. Thank you and good evening. Thank you for watching.